I'm Jay Taylor. I'm here at the Metals Investor Forum. It's November 10th, 2017. We're holding this event at the Georgia Hotel in downtown Vancouver. A number of really interesting stories that I've heard already at the conference, and I've invited 4 different companies to this event, companies that I follow in my newsletter that I believe make really good investment sense at this point in time. One of those companies is Canada Zinc Metals, and I'm really pleased to have with me Piyush Varshney. He's the CEO and chairman of this, CEO, chairman, and president, actually, of Canada Zinc Metals. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Jay.
Really interesting story. You know, as I said, this former analyst, mining analyst in Hong Kong, who's a subscriber of mine, said, "You got to look at this, Jay." And I'm more of a gold bug than a zinc bug, but I said, okay, well, business is business. Looked at it, and I said, yes, I have to look at this more closely. And I started, it really makes an awful lot of sense in terms of, well, we don't know yet the economics, but my goodness, the grades, very, very high. Your Cardiac Creek project in BC, in a really long zinc belt, a really large target, well, many targets.
Correct.
So your Cardiac Creek project is really very exciting, of really high-grade zinc values there, relative to lead too. Just talk to us, what do you have there now? What's your resource, and what do you hope to accomplish, and what is your overall business plan with this project?
Sure, Jay. So right now the Cardiac Creek deposit, drilling over the last several years, we've taken it from essentially 4 holes making up a historical resource of 13 million tons at roughly 10% zinc lead. We've now taken it to almost 30 million tons of the same grade. And right now, you're right, it's primarily a zinc deposit.
Yeah.
It runs at roughly 10% zinc plus lead, with the zinc grade being around 8.5% and lead about 1.5.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a bit of a small silver kicker as well. But the deposit right now is at obviously a nice tonnage. It's very sizable. It's of scale that I think attracts major mining groups now. 71% of the resource is indicated category, so high confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And and the reality is the deposit remains open for expansion still, along strike and at depth.
Yeah.
And we're finding that the grades have actually been getting higher
at depth.
Yeah. So we're quite excited to figure out how big this deposit really can be. But even right now, it's at pretty much critical mass. It's a big deposit.
Your drill program this year, what is it aimed? What is the intent of it?
So there was a bit of everything. I mean, there was a bit of expansion drilling. There was some more infill drilling, and we wound up getting just under 5,000 meters drilled, 8 holes. We had 2 drills on the project, and the results have been coming back over the last couple of months, with some more still to come. But we've been really pleased. All 8 holes, had massive intersections of mineralization. One of the holes recently, in early October, came back with, it was about almost 60 meters true width of almost 12% zinc lead.
Ooh. Wow.
And that contained about 15 meters of 22% zinc lead. So, it was a heck of a hole.
Yeah.
But, it really is, again, representative of the potential of this deposit and the grade. And 60 meters is probably the biggest intercept we've had yet.
Was that like a true width, or is that?
It was
wow.
True width, yeah.
Wow.
So, we actually report in true widths.
Mm-hmm.
We report in meters. We don't report in zinc equivalent. We report in zinc grade and lead grade. So what we get is what you hear about.
One of the things I really appreciate about your press releases is that each drill hole you say what your intent is.
Correct.
And it really helps, I think, investors follow what you're doing and know whether you've been successful or not. So I think I want to compliment you on that.
Thanks.
When do you think, so you haven't done any economics on it yet. What is your intent with regard to that? Because, you already have a good-sized deposit, lots of metal, 5 billion pounds of zinc, 900 million pounds of lead, 11 million ounces of silver. What is your thinking in terms of when you might start to put some economics together for this project?
That's a good question. Yeah. So 5 of the holes of this year's campaign were to actually advance the metallurgy on the project. So we're expecting that towards the end of the year. And then we're looking at doing a new resource update to include all of the drilling from this year.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're considering initiating that PEA soon thereafter. So if we go that route, it should be complete, I'd say, towards sometime in Q2 of 2018.
Sometime Q2.
Yeah.
But really important is the metallurgical results, and you said towards the end of this year, even before the end of 2017.
Correct. Yeah.
I'm sure.
It's ongoing as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would say certainly towards the end of the year, maybe early into next year. But it's happening as we speak.
That will certainly be something that the professionals are going to be watching very closely, I'm sure, and a very important
Agreed.
step. Certainly, I mean, you've talked about and have shown some of the relative values compared to some of your peers, and the price of your shares relative to the peers, you're way undervalued on that basis. Assuming the metallurgy is good and all of that, talk to us a little bit about where you think your valuation should be.
Sure.
And
okay. Yeah.
and how do you account for it? I mean,
well, you know what? Good questions, and I would say the deposit right now, based on the size and whatnot, right now the market's valuing us at basically 0.7 cents per pound of zinc equivalent in the ground. So
Right.
not even a penny.
Yeah.
And there's an analyst at Echelon Wealth Partners in Toronto that put together a chart of a peer group, and on average, the rest of the peer group is trading at almost 2.5 cents
Wow.
per pound of zinc equivalent in the ground. So we're really trading at a third
Yeah.
of the valuation given on average to this peer group.
Yeah.
And I think we're one of those projects that has the scale in terms of size of the deposit, the grade,
Mm-hmm.
the district scale potential. I mean, it is a 140-kilometer stretch of claims, 80,000 hectares of upside in terms of exploration potential. And we're in British Columbia. So I think all those things are attracting major mining groups as investors. So I do think we should be trading at least what the peer group is trading at on average, and maybe even at a premium to them, given the quality of what we have here.
NBC.
And NBC, exactly. Yeah. And so I think we're trading down just because we haven't really done a lot of or created enough awareness. I mean, we've really been focusing on the project, focusing on strategics that we're bringing to the project. And part of our objective, certainly going forward, is starting to tell the story more aggressively, some arm waving, of course, let people know.
Sure.
Because there are a number of times where I've been to places talking about Canada Zinc Metals, and people will say, oh boy, what a great project. I've never heard of it before.
Yeah, right.
So certainly that is one of our objectives going forward.
Yeah. Well, for sure. And I think maybe one of the reasons I would also suggest you're undervalued is that your shares are owned by some pretty strong hands, and they're not necessarily telling anybody. And your float is probably very small because people don't know about it yet, right?
Right. Yeah.
No. Talk about who owns your company.
Sure. Okay. So we've been able to attract Tongling Non-Ferrous Metals, a state-owned enterprise out of China. They're our biggest shareholder, holding about 30% of the shares. And they are a large copper group out of China. They have exploration properties, they have copper mines and copper smelters, but they've also got a lead and zinc smelter. And we're the only company that they've invested in that's in the zinc space outside of China. Teck and Korea Zinc are also shareholders of the company. Yeah. And, interestingly enough, Teck and Korea Zinc have actually optioned from us 3 of our earlier stage claims. Right. So they're actually earning in, spending money, doing some of that early stage exploration on 3 of our claims in that belt.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, we're talking to a few other groups based on the drilling this year that have reached out, wanting to chat about the project.
Well, that's a good thing. I'd as a shareholder, I'd really like to see a competitive interest in your project. That's for sure. We are basically out of time. Would you like to just sort of summarize what people should be watching for with this very undervalued story?
Well, again, there's some good news flow over the next 6 months. I've talked about the assay results, the metallurgy, the resource update, and the PEA. And then we start planning for next year.
Yeah.
We're out, again, telling the story as we are today. I'll be in London and Zurich in a few weeks.
Good.
New York, early December. So we're starting to hit the street, and then we'll probably get to Bay Street, Toronto in the spring,
Good.
and look to initiate hopefully some formal coverage on the company as well. So
Very good.
a lot of good stuff, and I think there's tremendous upside as you sort of lay out in some of your research.
Right. Well, I certainly, unless I'm missing something, Piyush, I think you will have a good response from those professionals that you go to see on Bay Street in New York and Zurich and elsewhere. Thanks so much for being with me
Thank you, Jay.
today
Appreciate
and for
it.
telling
Cheers.
your story to our viewers.
Thank you.